homework. So on Saturday night itself, I had uploaded the link in Moodle, and the homework was to jot down the assumptions of revealed preference theory in your copy, and you had to write it after understanding it properly. That was the task. There were some weak axiom and strong axiom concept. I wanted you to understand those things properly and then jot down in your copy. That was the task. Simple task. Okay. So yeah, you can see the screen. You can see the screen now. Hopefully you will be able, yeah, now you will be able to see the screen. So in that screen, what you can see, can anyone tell me what is the topic that you can see on your screen right now? Just anyone unmute and tell me what is the topic that you can see on your screen right now?
Ma'am, revealed preference theory and Slutsky theorem.
Yes, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Aditya. So this is revealed preference theory and the Slutsky theorem. Slutsky theorem was the theorem in which we came across the relationship between substitution, price, and income effect. That was the Slutsky theorem. And here, as I told you during the beginning of this concept, that this revealed preference theory goes against the, not against actually, it doesn't follow the strict hard and fast rule of the law of demand, but it simply puts its theory in front of the consumer's behavior concept, and then tries to prove the behavior of the consumer when they try to purchase their necessities, their different goods and services that they need. But today we will try to relate this revealed preference theory with the Slutsky theorem and try to find out that what could be the relationship. Okay, let us now see how the RPT, that is revealed preference theory, can be used to prove the Slutsky theorem, which states that if the income effect of for a commodity is ignored, then its demand curve must have a negative slope. I did not teach you Slutsky theorem in detail. I only I only showed you rather the relationship between substitution, income, and price effect that was coming from the Slutsky theorem. But if you study the entire theorem, I may give you this as an puja vacation task. I may give you, I'll give you the materials and all that, but you'll have to understand some theorem, or maybe I'll give you something from the syllabus itself. Let's see. So when if you go through the entire Slutsky theorem, then you will understand that in this theorem it has been stated that if the income effect of a commodity is ignored, that means that concept, if you remember, we were pushing the budget line sometimes upward, sometimes downward, and then we evaluated the income effect, right? So if that pushing upward and bringing it back to a budget line, that is ignored, then the demand curve for that commodity will have a negative slope. It has been proved in the Slutsky theorem. Okay, so if we don't take care of the income effect, we just try to define the relationship between the movement of price and demand of the product whose price is moving, and we just ignore the income effect, then the demand curve will show a negative slope. That means it will go from the top left to the down right. Okay, in order to explain this concept, we will take the help of the following figure: deduction of Slutsky theorem from the RPT. So now we will derive the Slutsky theorem from the concept of revealed preference theory. In other words, we will use the assumptions or the concept of revealed preference theory in order to derive the Slutsky theorem and prove the Slutsky theorem and say that they are actually related. So in this figure, you have to follow the figure as well as whatever I am speaking. Okay, so you can while I am explaining, you can draw the diagram in your copy. That will be easier for you to write the note of it afterwards. Okay, so so in this figure, let E1, you can see the point E1 from where the dotted lines have been plotted as perpendicular on x-axis and y-axis. In this figure, let E1, that is x1 and y1. What is x1 and y1? x1 is the number of units of the product x and y1 is the number of units of the product y. So E1 is a particular point which represents the combination of goods that the consumer initially purchases when his budget line is L1, M1. Can you see L1 and M1? You can see L1 and M1 in this figure. So in this figure, L1 and M1, when this L1 and M1, this budget line, this is a budget line. When this was the budget line of the consumer initially purchased this E1 combination, which consists of X1 units of X and Y1 units of Y. This is a combination point. Okay, this is not a point of purchase of only one product, but this is a point which shows the combination of two different products. X1 is the number of units of X and Y1 is the number of units of Y. So this is a particular point. This is a particular combination which this is a particular point which represents the combination of the goods that the consumer will initially purchase when his budget line will be L1 and M1. Okay, so we want to show here this is useless to use this term here. Okay, so let there be a fall in the price. Okay, let there be a so now let there be a fall in the price of good X from L1 M1. Then the purchase quantity of the good will increase from the part of the consumer because the price of X is falling, and thus if we ignore the income effect and say that the price of X is falling and thus the purchasing power of the consumer will increase because the price of X is falling, as per the general phenomena we are seeing, if the price of good X is falling, then the budget line of the consumer will shift somewhere, and then the consumer will have a greater purchasing power for buying the number of units of good X. If we ignore the income effect for now, that is, we are just considering the substitution effect. So we are following that phenomena where when price of X will fall, the consumer will purchase more of X, but he will substitute that X with Y. He will not buy Y more. He is going to buy X more now because the price of X has fallen down. Now let us suppose that the imaginary budget line for Slutsky theorem is L2 M2. Now let us now suppose that an imaginary budget line that is L2 and M2. I hope you can see L2 and M2 on your screen. From L1 and M1, we are now just imagining a budget line L2 M2. This line will be flatter than L1 and M1. Since the price of X has fallen, This ceteris paribus is a term which has been used in Slutsky theorem. Okay, this is a reason because of which this movement occurs. So once the Slutsky theorem is taught to you, then this idea will be clearer. But this is an effect. You suppose that you think of it like an effect that will make the budget line flatter. Okay, previously it was L1 and M1, now it is moving to L2 and M2, and you can easily identify that the slope of L2 and M2 is quite flatter than L1 and M1. Since the price of X has fallen, and this line L2 M2 will pass through the combination E1, so that as per the Slutsky condition, the consumer might be able to buy the initial combination if he liked under the changed circumstances. Now, what this effect, the ceteris paribus effect, will help us? This will help us to make the budget line pass through the previous combination. Previous combination means the combination E1. This new budget line, L2 and M2, although it will be a little flatter because the price of X has fallen, that's why the consumer is going to buy more of X. So following that concept, this budget line will be a little flatter one, but it will also at the same time pass through the previous combination, that is E1. Why? Because this will also allow the consumer to buy the previous combination E1 if he likes to buy that. Okay, so it's not that since the price of X has fallen, the consumer is going to buy more of X and less of Y, but this flatter budget line will allow the consumer to buy the previous combination, that is E1, if he likes to buy it. Okay. So if you liked under the changed circumstances, this ceteris paribus concept will not allow other things to change. Okay, other things will remain constant. That is why the effect of the other things which has been put to constant, that will not have any impact on this movement of the purchasing power, if you say, or the number of units that the consumer is buying. That movement, upon that movement, the other things which are going on in the market will be kept constant and they won't have any effect on it. The only effect that will occur is the shift in the budget line, but at the same time the new budget line is going to pass through the previous combination as well, because in the changed circumstances also, if the consumer wants to buy the previous combination, he can do so. Previous combination, we will better call it a initial combination. Okay, let us now see, because of the substitution effect, the point the consumer may select on the imaginary budget line L2 M2 would be a point like E2 to the right of the point E1. Because of the substitution effect, the point the consumer may select on the imaginary budget line L2 M2, if it is to be different from E1, would be a point like E2 to the right of the point E1. Now see, say now the consumer wants to select another combination, then the combination will fall towards the right of the previous point E1 on the new budget line L2 M2, and this has been notified by the point E2 in this figure. Okay. So, and also it has been seen that this point E2 will fall to the right of the point E1. To prove that this must be so, we have to note that selection of any point on L2 M2 such that E3, which lies to the left of E1, is ruled out by weak axiom reveal preference. Okay, so this is a kind of a complex concept. Okay, you have to be very clear about the idea of weak axiom reveal preference and strong axiom reveal preference. If you have studied in the weekend that I had asked you to go through, you would be able to understand what was the concept of WARP, weak axiom revealed preference. Let me take you back to that discussion. This was the fourth assumption under the list of assumption of revealed preference, where we had assumed, or we had known the concept of weak axiom revealed preference. Here, what we had assumed that if the consumer chooses the combination, say E1 is a combination, over another affordable combination, say E2, in a particular price income situation, then under no circumstances would he chooses E2 over E1 is E1 is affordable. So this was the weaker axiom. Okay, that means what? Even if the consumer is able to select a point, say E2, okay, but he will not do it and he will keep on buying E1 because he likes to buy E1, and if it is in an affordable condition, then he will keep on buying E1. Now come back to this concept. We were talking about the budget line L2M2, and we had also told that this L2M2 will pass through E1 also, because if the consumer likes to buy E1, he will be able to buy. It is affordable. When the budget line is passing to the point E1, that indicates that this E1 is actually an affordable one. Okay. But we are now also saying that if this E3 point is available to the consumer, which is lying to the left of E1, will be ruled out due to this weak axiom reveal preference. We have to also assume, take into consideration that any point on this new budget line L2 and M2 has got a 100% chance of getting ignored by the consumer, because the consumer prefers to buy E1. If there are any points E2, E3 on this new budget line L2, M2, then those has got a 100% chance of getting ignored due to the preference of the consumer who likes to buy E1. The selection of any other point on the new budget line L2 and M2 will be ruled out, will be ignored by the consumer due to this weak axiom reveal preference. This is because E1 initially has been revealed preferred to E3, since E3 lies below L1, M1. Okay, Preeti. Thank you for informing. Okay, so initially E1 has been revealed preferred to E3, since E3 lies below L1 and M1. But if E3 were chosen when the price line was L2, M2, that is E3 is revealed preferred to E1, since E1 is no more expensive than E3, for they both lie on the same budget line. In that case, we obtain that E1 is revealed preferred to E3 and vice versa, which violates the WARP. Now, initially E1 has been revealed preferred to E3, and it was because since E3 was lying below L1 and M1. Now see, check the figure. E3 is lying below L1 and M1, right? And that indicates what? This E1 has been revealed preferred being expensive. Okay, being expensive, it has been revealed preferred. But if E3 were chosen when the price line was L2 M2, now suppose the consumer is preferring to buy E3 when the new budget line, that is L2 and M2, is his condition, is his constraint. He cannot go beyond that. So he won't be able to buy any other point other than E1, right? See, beyond this E1 point, it is falling beyond this budget line L2 M2. But E3, which is falling in the budget line L2 M2, suppose that is preferred by the consumer and he is no longer preferring E1. Then we can say that E3 will be reveal preferred to E1 since E1 is no more expensive than E3 because both of them are lying on the same budget line. In that case, we will obtain that E1 is revealed preferred to E3 and vice versa. Both ways it is happening, isn't it? We are seeing that it can also happen that E3 will be preferred to E1. In that case, this weaker axiom of reveal preference theory will be ignored, will be violated, because the weaker axiom of reveal preference theory says that if E1 is preferred to E3, then under no circumstances this preference will change. But when we are trying to bring on the Slutsky theorem into this phenomena, and then we are saying that E3 can be revealed preferred to also E1, because when this new budget line L2 and M2 is plotted, then this E3 can be a more attractive option to the consumer than E1. In this case, we will obtain that both are in vice versa relationship, and both E1 can be revealed preferred to E3 at the same time. E3 can also be revealed preferred to E1, but this will violate the weaker axiom of reveal preference. Okay. So we will carry on this discussion further tomorrow. This is not a very big discussion. We'll finish this off tomorrow itself. But up to this paragraph, you all should write in your copy. This is your home task for today. You will draw the diagram. You will give the heading. This link is shared in your Moodle. You will give the heading reveal preference theory and the Slutsky theorem. And under that, you will draw this diagram and write till this third paragraph. Write till is ruled out by WART. Up to that, you will have to write in your copy, in your notebook. Okay. So that is your task. Just hold on for a minute. I'll take your attendance and then you may leave. Tomorrow, all of you should attend the class, okay? I will not take live attendance. You can mute yourself. I'll just take it from the participants list, okay? Just hold on for a while. I'll take it from the participants list. All right, so what I was telling is, by the time I take the attendance, I will announce this discussion also. What I wanted to tell is tomorrow all of you should attend the class, because tomorrow is going to be the last class before your puja holidays starts. So it is very important to attend tomorrow's class. Every class, whatever class takes place tomorrow, you should attend all of them, because in these classes all the teachers will give you puja assignment. Okay, so you should be attending all the classes. In my class also, I'll announce the puja assignment in the class itself, and after that the copy of it or a summarized concept of whatever I'll tell, that will be uploaded in Moodle. But if you don't attend the class, you will not be able to understand the assignment. So it is better to attend the class tomorrow. All right. So that was the announcement I wanted to make. Anyways, you can leave the classroom and see you tomorrow again. And your home task should be completed by you by today. Okay. Tomorrow we'll finish off this concept. Okay. Bye bye then. Thank you. Thank you so much.